What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes. So this is going to be my banner review and builds guide for the new young banner. Duo Ike is basically going to be the start of this banner and he's got Sturdy War Sword as his preferred weapon. This is essentially a 19 might weapon that can give him +5 to all of his stats, and then he can get more effects based on the allies within 4 spaces of him. If he has got 1 or more ally, then he can reduce the special count right before his first attack during the combat, and the special cooldown reduction that he gets is going to be half of his maximum special cooldown. So Radiant Aether is a 4-turn special, which means that he can reduce that special count by -2 right before his first attack. And when you combine this with a Breath Sacred Seal like Darting Breath, you can basically retaliate back with Radiant Aether right away, which is absolutely amazing for getting more HP back and also doing a lot more damage. If he has got 2 or more allies, then he can reduce damage from foe's first attack by X%, and here X is going to be basically the value of your maximum special cooldown count multiplied by 10, which means that with Radiant Aether, this becomes 40% damage reduction. And then finally, if he has got 3 or more allies, he can get Null Follow Up. So Duo Ike basically combines a lot of the characteristics of a God Sword into this weapon with Null Follow Up with damage reduction, and comes with a niche of basically reducing his special cooldown count at start of his first attack, which allows him to basically use Radiant Aether much better. He also has amazing stat spread offensively with 42 base attack and 42 base speed, so he's gonna be really fast, and he also comes with a new skill in Distant Dart. So this is basically a speed variant of Distant Stance, where it gives you distant counter and +5 speed in the enemy phase. This is different from Distant Pressure because Distant Pressure does give you +5 speed in the player phase as well, at the cost of having that recall damage. Distant Dart has no recall damage but only gives you speed in the enemy phase. He also has Null Counter Disrupt and Joint Drive Attack, which overall makes him into a really good fodder because of this Distant Dart skill, which any kind of unit who's running a damage reduction skill or wants to be fast is going to be appreciating, and it's definitely going to be like an upgrade of Distant Counter on them. He also comes with a duo skill which further sets him apart from a lot of the other sword infantries. This duo skill has got incredibly huge range of 5 rows or 5 columns, so it can inflict -7 attack and speed debuff on the opponent and also inflict them with the guard effect. And it also increases their special cooldown count by +2. Because of this being a duo skill, he can also score as a 195 BST unit, but he's not the highest scoring unit as we do have Duo Dagger and Duo Crom who can score better than him. Still, he's one of the higher scoring units that you could use in Arena. So this duo skill is definitely going to be helping him in Summoner Duels, especially in the Ranked mode or in Summoner Duels S, because people are going to be having pre-charged special with AETHER, Regin, or Harmonic Sonia, or by having a Hardy Fighter armor. So being able to reset their special essentially and then inflicting guard on them is going to be making it a lot easier for you to tank their hits, and definitely can cut through their firepower. So it can help you a lot, but still he's a melee infantry unit and that can be a bit awkward at times to put into your Summoner Duels R team especially. And 4 space range is definitely a pretty generous condition, but basically you cannot really send him too deep into the enemy lines like you could do with maybe someone like Ascended Marita. So basically he has that different playstyle, which does require him to be near his allies, which is definitely easier to do in a lot of the game modes. If you want to use him on a budget, then you can simply use him with Darting Breath, and this does have really good synergy with the -2 special cooldown that he can get out of his weapon, and Radiant Aether is just the best special for him. I know Vital Astra is something that a lot of people do consider, but I really wouldn't change Radiant Aether from Ike with this kind of build, especially when you're running a Breath Sacred Seal. Special Spiral has really good synergy with his weapon, and -2 special cooldown is amazing from his weapon. So Special Spiral does allow you to use Radiant Aether in player phase as well, whereas the Breath Sacred Seal basically only allows you to do that in the enemy phase. And then you can also stack up more damage reduction on him, which is definitely going to be helpful because he's not really having a big opportunity cost like a lot of these sword infantry units where he has to choose between Null Follow Up or a damage reduction skill. He already gets Null Follow Up from his weapon, so he can just run Close Call and basically get 64% damage reduction from the first attack of the opponent. And then from the second attack onwards, he's going to be having the 40% damage reduction, because keep in mind that the damage reduction that he gets from his weapon is only for the first attack. He can also be used in Summoner Duels where you're probably going to be using a far save unit, so that's why I think you should be running something that can give you more speed in the slot A, like Attack Speed Unity, which also has another effect of basically dealing with those debuffs, and that can really be helpful if you're facing someone like, Brave Erica, who just debuffs you with the Menace skill. And Duo Ike is going to be on the front line, so that's why the Unity skill definitely helps. And the Farsave unit is as it is going to be covering him, so he's going to be focusing on the melee matchups. And lull attack speed is really helpful in the slot B in summoner duels because people are going to be using Duo Dagger, they're going to be using the visible buffs, so this can make him a bit more tanky. And like I said, there's not too much of an opportunity cost of replacing the skills in a slot B, so this could be done. And it's especially really helpful. Darting Breath with the Radiant Aether is hopefully going to be making it a lot harder for your opponents to initiate on him, and then you pretty much make use of his duo skill to get rid of their Hardy Fighter armors and their pre-charge special when the time is right. So definitely have to keep in mind to use his duo skill strategically when it benefits you the most. You can also use him in Aether Raid's offense as a null counter disrupt tank. He already comes with that in his slot B, and that's most useful in Aether Raid's offense where people might be running their Dazzling Staff healers or Fire Sweep bow users, but still the quantity of those units have kind of decreased over the time, as we have seen Ascended Fjorm as a really common Farsave tank. Omni tanking is not really all that common because now we do have the save tanks, but still if you want to use him in Aether Raid's offense, then this is the way to go. And then you can also use him at max investment in Arena. And because the slot B skill is rather free, you can just run the tempo skill from Young Mia, and this can definitely go really well with the special acceleration. This is going to be an expensive skill, but it's really helpful in Arena where people are going to be having the guard effects from their fighter skills and such, and also the special acceleration, and this just goes really well with his special spamming playstyle that he does with Radiant Aether. This banner has got another sword infantry unit in Young Mia, and she has got Sharp War Sword as her preferred weapon. So this provides her with -1 special cooldown, and it also has phantom speed built into it. If she's within 2 spaces of an ally, she can get null follow up and dodge as the status effect for that turn. So keep in mind that this is not built into her weapon. She needs to be within 2 spaces of an ally at start of a turn to get these as a status effect so that she can have it for the rest of the turn. And then finally, she can get +5 to all of her stats pretty easily. Young Mia differs from Duo Ike with the fact that she's got phantom speed in her weapon, so she can use Flashing Blade a lot better to be a more consistent Gale Force unit, and she also has -1 special cooldown, which means that she can use Vital Astra. Phantom speed might not really seem like the biggest thing, but it's honestly amazing for this kind of fast unit, because even if Mia is facing an opponent who has got more speed than her, she's still going to be able to trigger her Flashing Blade effect and also get more damage reduction. So it is going to be helpful in any kind of scenario where a skill compares the speed stat of Mia with the opponent, and that's where the phantom speed is going to be helping you win. And then the combination of null follow up and dodge in her weapon makes it so that she can easily run the tempo skill and not really have a big opportunity cost. So again, she just combines all of the good things of a god sword into this weapon. She also has a new skill in Speed Defense Tempo, which inflicts -3 speed and defense debuff on the enemy during the combat, and it also has Null Guard built into it, and also disables these skills which can give special acceleration to the opponent. So if you face an opponent with Darting Breath or Special Fighter, it is pretty much going to be disabling that special acceleration and also going to be getting you past the guard effect. This tempo skill is going to be inheritable by only the infantry units. No other movement type is able to access this. So tempo skill is amazing on Young Mia, but unfortunately not every unit is going to be like her, who already has null follow up in their weapon and dodge. So that's why this skill could be niche many times, because null follow up can pretty much win you more matchups, and a lot of times this skill is going to be having that opportunity cost, and this is going to be competing with the other slot B skills. So the best users of this skill are going to be units who do not really have much of an opportunity cost, and Jomke is easily the best free to play unit for this skill. So tempo skill is going to be the ideal skill for his slot B so that he can embrace being a colorless Uller and just trigger his Deadeye on the second hit. So the Null Guard effect really helps him a ton with the Bow of Verdane Weapon Refine. Brave Alm also has the partial null follow up in his weapon and is not going to be taking any kind of counter attack with the Wind Sweep effect from his weapon. So that's why Speed Defense Tempo is really good, because if the bulky enemy does not die in a single hit, then he can just trigger Moonbow really easily with the help of Time Pulse on his second hit. And something like this could be really scary in Aether Raids if you're using a near save armor unit. Tempo skill, as you have seen, is going to be having good synergy with the skills that can accelerate your special. So Flame Segment does provide you with the special acceleration, which means that Ephraim can just trigger Ignis a lot easily against a lot of the opponents, and Sturdy Surge is going to be there to heal him up. So it does have good synergy with special acceleration skills like Flashing Blade also, for example, and because of that, you can also use this on units who have got lethality like Yuri and Joshua. Both of these are going to be good with the skill, but in some situations Yuri is going to be lacking to have null follow-up, so again that opportunity cost does come into the play, and Yuri is going to be having that Kanto, so that can just help you retreat, but Joshua on the other hand does have the Fire Sweep effect, but it's going to be missing out on the null follow-up if you do run this in a slot B. So generally units who have got some special acceleration skill or have got null follow-up or damage reduction built into their weapon as it is can definitely afford to run this tempo skill in their slot B. I hope that we can see even more tempo skills on the future banners because it's definitely going to be a really nice option on a lot of units. Young Mia can function as a really consistent Gale Force unit, and even on a budget you can definitely run that because her base kit definitely allows you to do that. But if you want to change things up, then Surge Sparrow could be an option with the tempo skill. And here you're not even going to be needing any kind of Flashing Blade because with the tempo skill you're going to be able to trigger Luna no matter what on the second hit. So that is going to be giving you a mini Aether of sort. Luna is a 2-turn special with her weapon, and then if you really want to optimize her, then Vital Astra with Time Pulse is basically the best thing you can do on Young Mia. Because this is going to be stacking up damage reduction, and if you want to, you can also stack up even more damage reduction with a slot B skill like Spurn or Close Call. Close Call does help you retreat back to your allies, and combining all of the damage reduction, she can basically get 75% damage reduction, and if you are not going to be facing any kind of opponents with lethality or Deadeye, then this kind of Mia could be really annoying for a lot of the opponents, and something like this could be used in Summoner Duels S maybe, where you just ban their Deadeye or lethality units and then just checkmate the opponent with Mia because she's going to be having ridiculous amount of damage reduction. She also has null follow-up, amazing speed, and Vital Astra is going to be giving you some monstrous damage output. Time Pulse is going to be pre-charging the Vital Astra, so you can let go of the tempo skill for stacking even more damage reduction. You can also use her in Aether Raid's offense either as an initiator or as a Wings of Mercy unit. Now if you want to use her as an initiator, then you can just run Double Fury build, and that can allow you to fall into the Wings of Mercy range in 2 combats if she's got 56 or less HP. So one way of triggering Gale Force is to just make sure that you can use the tempo skill and then reduce the special cooldown of her Gale Force to 2 by using Valuria or by just using some infantry pulses, which is possible if you run infantry dancers like Azura or Sylvia. Trigger Gale Force on her second hit, and she can oftentimes take less damage because of the damage reduction that she has got in her weapon, so that's why the Fury recall damage is really helpful to make sure that you can fall into that Wings of Mercy range. And the good thing is that she doesn't really have any kind of HP threshold on her weapon, so she can easily take the recall damage and don't really mind and not really lose out on any kind of firepower. If you cannot really run Valuria or double infantry pulses, then you can just run Time Pulse in her slot C and maybe support her with infantry pulse. And again, making Gale Force into a 2 cooldown special is going to be helping. And then she can also be used as a Wings of Mercy unit if you're using some other initiator like maybe Ninja Korin or Ninja Lin. And this allows you to jump in and trigger Flashing Blade extremely consistently because of the phantom speed in her weapon, and you can just maximize her offenses, have a 4-turn Gale Force, or again have a 2-turn Gale Force if you do have Valuria. And finally, as a +10 merge project, she can be used in Arena with the Vital Astra Time Pulse build, which is going to be the best combo for her at the higher investment. Young Soren is a colorless mage infantry unit with Adroit War Tome as his preferred weapon. This gives him -1 special cooldown, and he can get +6 attack and resistance during the combat, and then the weapon compares the resistance of his with the opponent and gives him more effects based on that. Keep in mind that this does compare the in-combat resistance, and which is why Mirror Impact, his default skill, is really good with this. So if he has got 1 or more resistance than the opponent, then he can make a guaranteed follow-up attack. If he has got 5 or more, then he can basically get a wind sweep effect against the physical damaging opponents, and that is really good because his defense is not the highest, so it gives him a better player face against them. And then finally, if he has got 10 or more resistance than the opponent, then he can cut through the damage reduction by 50%. This is kind of similar to that of Duo Live, where you're not going to be completely nullifying the enemy's damage reduction skills, but you're definitely going to be cutting them in half. Young Soren has got amazing attack at base 42, which also has a super boon in it, and his resistance is really high to make use of this weapon to its best of its ability. 43 base resistance is definitely pretty nice, and then you can just stack up more resistance with the impact skill and his sacred seal. Young Soren also has enough speed to bypass a lot of follow-up negation units and skills by making use of his guaranteed follow-up attack and then by winning the speed check against them. So he doesn't really have to run null follow-up right away to get past those opponents. And then with the time pulse and his -1 special cooldown, he can definitely pre-charge specials like Ruptured Sky or Glimmer. But Iceberg can also hit really hard that he can bring down to 1 cooldown with his weapon and time pulse. If you want to build up Soren on a budget, then there are unfortunately not too many good skills for slot B, so attack resistance link does work out for just making sure that he can trigger that resistance check of his weapon, and then he can just run a Sacred Seal that can boost his resistance by any kind of form. And if you want to give him a more premium skill, then Special Spiral could be an option from the Divine Code section. Resistance Smoke does work out with this build because we're just going to be having Iceberg charged up at all times once it's set up with Special Spiral. So he doesn't really need Time Pulse other than the initial setup of Spiral. So the Smoke skill can help you trigger your weapon a lot easily and also allows him to do more damage. Iceberg does become a 2-turn special with his weapon, so having it pre-charged with the Special Spiral is definitely pretty nice for nuking. Attack Resistance Unity is also an option that you can run in the slot A if you want to have him function in both phases. Mirror Impact only gives you the attack and resistance in the player phase. And then if you want to have a more expensive slot C skill, and if you want a more expensive slot C option, then Attack Resistance Menace can work out, and it also helps him with the resistance check of his weapon by creating a 12-point stat differential between the resistance of the enemy and Soren. And by boosting up his own attack and resistance, he can hopefully attract more debuffs on those stats and then make use of the Unity effect. Young Soren is also really good in Aetherite's defense, where he could pre-charge Iceberg or Glacies with a bit of support from either Duo Chrom or Infantry Pulse. He's really good because of the fact that he can have the wind sweep effect against the physical threats. So against threats like Brave Hector, he can just attack them for free because he's going to be having more speed than them. But still against other far save units like Ascended Fjorm or Ascended Idun, he's not going to be able to do that. And that's why I have recommended running the Duo Chrom, because Duo Chrom can deal with Ascended Fjorm, which is going to be one of his main weaknesses. Lull Speed Resistance is also a really good slot B skill. Lull Attack Resistance I guess could also be run, but he's not going to be taking any kind of damage from the physical threat, so that's why having the Lull Speed variant is going to be a bit helpful to make sure that he can bypass the follow-up negation effects. If you do invest into him heavily, then he could be used in Arena with Time Pulse and Ruptured Sky to pre-charge it. And again, a Lull skill is going to be a pretty good option. So those are his main slot B options. You can either run Special Spiral from the Divine Codes, or you could also run Lull Speed Resistance from Divine Codes as well. So it is going to be taking a few more resources, but definitely worth it if you like Young Soren a lot. Pre-charging a 2 cooldown special like Ruptured Sky with Time Pulse is definitely helpful against the opponents who have got the guard effect or have some kind of null follow-up. So Soren is not able to get the guaranteed follow-up attack of his weapon, but he can just focus on one-shotting them with that pre-charged special. Young Ilyana is the 4-star focused unit of this banner, and she's a green infantry mage with Windy War Tome as her preferred weapon. This gives her +3 resistance, and then she can inflict -6 attack and resistance debuff on the opponent during the combat. She also has Dragon Wall built into this weapon, and then finally if she's got 5 or more resistance than the opponent, then she can stop their follow-up attacks. So this overall functions as a pretty solid preferred weapon on a 4-star focus, because she can function as a green Julius basically, because Julius also has these attack and resistance debuff and also Dragon Wall in his weapon. It's just that Ilyana is green color and is a lot more modern, so she's got better stats and doesn't really take that many Dragon Flowers. And if you have used Julius, then you know exactly what to expect out of young Ilyana. So she can function as a really great bulky green mage with this weapon. The damage reduction is really helpful because she has got insane resistance at base 42, and that also has a super boon. So it's really easy for her to get that damage reduction consistently and also be really bulky with those in-combat debuffs, and then ultimately stopping the enemy's follow-up attacks, which is of course going to be susceptible to the enemy's null follow-up and such, but still she can be bulky because of that damage reduction even if she gets doubled. She also has really good base attack at base 41. Her speed is kind of workable. She doesn't really get any kind of guaranteed follow-up attack from her weapon, unlike young Soren, so she has to run quicker post, and she does have lull attack resistance as a demote, but you'll have to spend 20,000 feathers to get that. Lull attack resistance is quite fine on young Ilyana, and you can just run resistance smoke so that she can have a better damage reduction and resistance check out of her weapon. You can run Mirror Stance 2 on a budget, but Mirror Stance 3 is also an option from the Divine Code section, and the guard effect can definitely be pretty nice for any kind of tank, especially the one who's going to be functioning in the enemy phase with that quick riposte. Iceberg is a pretty nice special for her because of her high damage output, but Glimmer could also be a special that she could trigger in a single round of combat, and she does have pretty good damage output to make good use of that. At higher investments, you can definitely run Attack Resistance Unity in the slot A of Ilyana for stacking up more resistance and for also dealing with the debuffs on those stats. And Attack Resistance Menace could be a more expensive option that you can run. Ultimately, if you don't really invest too hard into her speed, then Quick Riposte is definitely something you have to run as her Sacred Seal. If you have seen a premium well-built Julius, then you have probably seen them speed stack many times, and we're going to be doing similar on young Ilyana as well here, so that she can function better in the player phase and also is able to outspeed units without having Quick Riposte in her kit. So if you want to speed stack with young Ilyana, then this could be an option because she can basically have more than 60 speed with a build like this by utilizing Attack Speed Ideal, Attack Speed Menace, and having Speed Resistance form. Not investing too hard into her resistance is going to be fine at this kind of investment because her resistance is already so high that she's not going to be having much trouble getting the damage reduction. So you could try to invest into her other stats like the speed or the attack with a build like this. And because Glimmer can trigger in a single round of combat, it could be a special that you could run with this kind of speedy build. Again, it really depends on a lot of people if you want to just stack up resistance and attack on this kind of unit, or you want to, make work of their speed and just speed stack on them. Depends from player to player, but it's certainly a good option. But in AETHER's offense, it's extremely easy to speed stack on young Ilyana because of having Peony, her Flower of Joy, and also having Air who can run Temari Dagger to debuff the speed of the opponent. So all this does help you speed stack, and you can run this kind of build with a near safe tank so that Ilyana can focus on taking on the range opponents, and then the near save unit can just protect them from node and stuff like that. And a big use of running Attack Speed Unity in slot A is because she's going to be on the front line, so Node is going to be triggering her Attack Speed Menace, and that is immediately going to be giving her more attack and speed. And because she's going to be having a near safe unit covering them, you can run Joint Drive Speed so that they can also benefit from the extra speed. The solo skill with a Unity skill might look a bit funny, but in Aether raids, you're going to be having Ilyana one space away from the near save unit, so she can get benefit both from the Unity skill as well as the solo skill. And unless you're using a save armor, most of the time people do, keep the space between their units so that their other units do not really get sniped by the enemy. Null Follow-Up can definitely help in AETHER's offense where people are going to be running the impact effects, so she can just bypass that and still double attack them. Like Sturdy Impact Bramimon is pretty common, and that's why Speedy Ilyana can just make use of Null Follow-Up, because even though she can stop the follow-up attacks with her weapon, with Null Follow-Up she can bypass the enemy's effects that can stop her own follow-up attacks, so she can just double enemies with Wary Fighter or Follow-Up Negation or units who are running the impact skills. Ilyana can also be used with G-Dual Infantry 4 in Arena, and Blue Flame could be a special that you can run because while Ruptured Sky is a 2-turn special, you're gonna be debuffing the attack of the opponent pretty hard with her weapon as well as the Menace skill. So that's why Blue Flame can work out, and if you're running a speedy build, then Null Follow-Up could be an option. Again, I'm giving both options for the player who want to build up and focus on her attack and resistance, and the players who want to focus on her speed. Both options are viable at max investment, so that's why I've shown builds for both of the cases. Make sure to share this video with your friends if you enjoyed, and also be sure to leave a like and a comment. Helps me tremendously, and if you really enjoyed, you could always support me directly by using super thanks or by becoming a YouTube member. And for more FEH analysis videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because I wish YouTube sub boxes also had phantom speed just like young Mia. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.